it's amazing how individual relationships can in fact impact culture, and then culture can also impact individual relationships. You look at what you're explaining right now. So my parents, they were the generation of like not being heard, not being taken care of. Like
Mm.
for my family, that's certainly true in the past. And my granddad, who passed away recently, he was the most like emotionless, at least on the surface, person I knew.
Yeah.
And by like emotions, I don't mean it bad, but I mean just very like logical. Like this happened, one, two, three, four, five, six.
Yeah.
I think that's part of his nature, but also part of the generation he grew up in.
Mm.
And then he was like that towards my mum. And then so my mum is like very like, you know, and I think a lot of parents are like that because maybe before that, for my granddad's generation, it was a lot of what's what I'm looking for, a lot of coddling.
Yeah.
So then he was like, I want to be like harsh. Then that cycle continues,
Yeah,
and
it
then
does.
you look at the politics now of like of what's being, I guess, pushed, or who has a louder voice. It's the kind of the left wing ideologies of like, you don't know how to make a decision for yourself. Let us do it for you.
Mm.
You don't know how to do this. Let us do it for you. We can handle all that for you.
Well, there's a whole
And
bunch
that's
of
what we're
people not,
experiencing now.
yeah, a whole bunch of people not thinking for themselves and wanting to be guided.
Yeah.
They're open to anything, and you could have a very powerful person, a narcissistic person, that can take advantage of that frailty, and that appears to. So that's what's happened. That's why they've been so polarized over there. So yeah.
Isn't it interesting as well, right? Like there's a natural inside of any hierarchy or any community, there's
Mm.
always a self-correcting entity,
Mm.
and like this might come off like a bit crazy, but that's why psychopaths exist. That's why they're 1 to 2% of the population.
Mm.
That's why pathological narcissists also exist, who are, again, 1 2% of the population.
Yeah.
I don't mean your your definition of he's a narcissist or she's a narcissist. It's like no. I mean clinically diagnosable narcissism,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's self-correcting, right? And you see, there's always someone that has to take out the trash, so to speak.
Mm.
And I don't mean as in murder people. I mean specifically people are willing to do like things where their emotions aren't, the empathy's not on.
Mm.
Like it could be a variety of activities, but back in ancient culture, the people
Yeah.
that were able to go off and fight other tribes
Mm.
and be okay, like come back normal, like, oh yeah, oh good, no worries,
Mm.
because they have that switch turned off, that empathy neuron switch turned off.
They do.
And I'm not saying that you do that now in this society. I'm saying there's examples of jobs in the world that need to be done where you can't be someone who has that switch on.
Yeah.
And by switch, I don't mean that can be turned on and off. I mean switch as in just an example, like. So I think it's really important to note that, that we are who we are individually, but we are a part of a bigger entity.
Yes.
And
And
on all levels.
Yeah, and we're all playing our roles in the what are they calling it these days? They think we're in a
simulation.
Simulation, right? So we're all going to playing our roles in the simulation, right? So, and you're right. There's certain people have certain personality traits that are perfect for their. If you're a surgeon, you don't want to be really upset about assaulting someone's body. You want to do it, that sort of stuff. And we have further to your point around that pendulum is that if it's self-correcting, then you've got to trust that process too, right? So you go, okay, we'll lean this way, we'll lean back this way. These people will do their jobs, these people do those jobs. Even if, and I'm looking way from the outside here, if we end up having to kill half of the people in the world to learn a valuable lesson, we probably will. That's how it's going to be. But for me, in the time I'm here, and the only thing I have some control over, and probably not as much as I think, which is the way that I perceive the world and the way that I think. So if I recognise that I want to have a reasonable experience and existence between now and the day I die, I finally come to a point in my life where I think, okay, I'm no longer being an avatar. I'm no longer being someone that I needed to be for someone that I thought I should be for others. I'm being authentically me for the time I have left, and what am I going to do with that time? And if I notice myself being unsettled, or I notice myself being depressed or anxious or worried, that's the time to go, oh, hang on a sec. I think I'm probably a good enough father, brother, son, friend, businessman, counselor. I'm good enough at all of that, and I'm going to be moderate in all of my mistakes. I'm not going to be hugely anything. I'm not going to be hugely compassionate. I'm not going to be hugely angry. I'm just going to be somewhere in this middle ground that says I care enough, and that's enough, and I have boundaries around how much I'm willing to give of my time and care and compassion. And that's enough because I need to give myself time and compassion as well. So that's how it's working for me. And I think that's probably a pretty good goal for most, I think. And that is to be good enough at everything and to be moderate, not to be too much. And if you're a parent, to um, uh, model model that moderation, but also model that I can change. So if I've decided that that way of being in the world no longer suits me, then I can change. I'd like my kids to see that because they're going to hit walls, they're going to hit challenges, they're going to have suffering, and if I can be a role model that said, "Oh, Dad went through that, but he ended up caring for himself more. He ended up loving himself throughout that process. He was kind to himself when that happened." I'd like them to watch that so they know they have that option.